Hey everyone, Kim here, Abundant Life Tarot. Thank you so much for joining me. We are doing another month in review, monthly favorites. This is for November 2024. So I'm recording this December 8th, 2024. And yeah, I'm still processing November, to be honest. It was some highs, definitely some lows. And yeah. One of the biggest lows for me was I fell. I fell pretty hard. It was like, I think a week after the election, and right before my son surprised, my oldest son, he surprised us and made his way from the US to the DR for a visit. And that was a high. That was definitely a high. And he stayed for about a week. But whoa, oh my God, like, it was painful because I got a gash in my shin and it's taken a long time for that wound to recover. And I even have, like, from where I like kind of skidded with my wrist, I have like scars on my wrist from that. So it was humbling. It's been painful. I'm still sore. It's still tender. And I kind of so hobble along. And then I had complications. There was like a chemical burn I experienced. I had a reaction to the adhesive for the covering the wound. So it's just been a time. And it's kind of set me in a funky mood at times. Sometimes I'm fine and I feel fine. And other times it gets me down, you know? So that's what happens when you sustain an injury, right? It's a part of the process of healing. It's not just the physical, but it's the mental and the emotional. And you sometimes take for granted that you walk with ease, and and so I won't take it for granted anymore. And yeah, but definitely a high was my son coming for a visit. That was really amazing, and I was so grateful for it. But yeah. That fall was a bit rough. So what else happened? I got some new decks on the way. We may as well transition into the first topic of discussion that I want to share with you all. Let's get into my 2024 low buy deck reflections. Many of you who have been following me know that I did a big depth year in 2020, and it stretched for, I think, overall for like 18 months. It was like part no buy for several months, like 6 months, then low buy, then no buy, and that really worked with me. This year for 2024, I just wanted to do a low buy, and I gave myself a budget of $250 US to stick to for decks, that I wanted to add to the collection. And I want to share with you some reflective points now that I'm recording this in December. And the first thing is, I think that for 2025 going forward, now that I have shrunk my budget consistently on how much I spend on decks year over year, I want to go deeper. You're going to probably start hearing me speak about tarot studies I'm engaging in, or going into more deep dives of decks that I already have. That's for me the next phase, is to deepen my connection with the decks I have. I didn't get a lot of opportunity this year to deep dive into decks like I would like, but I'm hoping that by sticking to another low buy year in 2025, that we're continuously fostering that intention for myself, is to deepen my connection with the decks that I have, and also to prepare to maybe be in a waning phase of my collection where I start giving away decks, selling decks, and shrinking the collection just a little bit, So that's what's coming up for me now that I've had a chance to think about it and look at all the decks I've used over, the course of this year. I keep track of the decks that I use each month. believe it or not. I have a spreadsheet month over month, and I just list them. I have ways to filter if it's a tarot or oracle deck, you know, and I put little notes of how often I used it and what purpose if necessary. And so I get a strong feeling of the decks I'm consistently going to. But with that being said, it's been a lot of fun to shop my collection, to go to my shelves or my reading tables and pull up a deck I haven't really worked with in a while, or a deck that's new to me, and just getting into a groove of reading with it. That's been great, especially when I'm like, ooh, I'm really like at budget or over budget for this deck to add to the collection. Now, some people would say, well, Kim, why bother limiting yourself for a budget? Here's why. I went crazy when I was adding to my collection of decks. And I didn't have a budget when I first started really collecting decks. Not just learning decks where you had a few, you know, you're studying. No, I'm talking about full on, I want to collect decks. Like, I want the beautiful indie decks. I want the just fresh on the press mass market decks. And it just, after a while, there was decks coming, and I was not getting a chance to even properly use it or appreciate those decks. And I wanted to change the relationship I had with my collection. So for me personally, it's a necessity. I enjoy the challenge of having an amount, a dollar amount. Maybe instead of a dollar amount, you could say I only will allow myself to buy one deck every other month, or one deck once a month, depending on your budget. You could do it that way. You don't have to set a monetary value. But I set a monetary value, and it was great because some months I didn't spend anything. Other months, well, I spent quite a bit. So it averaged itself out. But I had a prize, which was to try not to go over the budget. And if I did go over, not by much. So yeah, it's a challenge for myself. And now the next phase is deepening my connection. I had to get comfortable with not needing the latest shiny deck. And it's been a teachable moment for me. Like, I do not know what decks are really out. Sometimes there will be a deck that's brand new to me, and I used to be the one that knew the decks that were coming out fresh out. Now I'm not. I'm like the last to know. And then I go to YouTube and find out the deck's been out for a year and a half. But I like it. That's what the way it's supposed to be. The deck entered into my world just when it's supposed to be entering, right? You know, so I'm looking down at my notes on my laptop, in case you're wondering why I keep looking down. Just want to make sure I stay on point about my depth year update. So right now I'm in a very much full moon phase of my deck collecting journey. And I will link in the description box my moon phase theory surrounding deck collecting, or collecting anything. But I do sense this call very soon to start to wane the collection a bit. And it's a cycle. It ebbs and flows for all of us. Let me know what moon phase you're in your deck collecting journey now that we've gone through 2024, right? Or whenever you watch this video, maybe you watch it several months or years from now. What moon phase are you in? Are you acquiring decks? Are you in that waxing phase of your collecting? Whatever it is you're collecting. Are you feeling full and satiated? Or maybe you're brand new, like it's new moon energy, and you're like, oh, I don't even know where to get started, but I know I'm going to get a deck. There's that phase, then there's the attrition phase, or the acquisition phase. You're acquiring decks. You're adding to it. That's the waxing moon phase. And then the full moon phase, you feel full. If you get a deck, you maybe give a deck away. And so there's not much like decks leaving or coming or going, but you're full. And then we start to wane. Like sometimes we start to feel the need to give away decks, declutter, destash. We want to maybe not necessarily trade, because that'd be more of a full moon type of activity for your deck collecting, but for your collecting You may be selling decks. You could be giving them away, donating them, etc. So I'm full moon right now, but I sense that waning is coming. I do. We'll see. I will also be publishing videos later this month about my top 10 tarot decks I used this year, top 10 oracle decks I was using this year that I think are mentionable, that I need to share with you. My short 5 deck or tarot deck wish list for 2025, just 5 tarot decks I plan to discuss. My deck hauls. So I will be sharing with you some new decks I added, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I just don't feel the need to look out for new decks right now. I love when people recommend decks and I just put it on my wish list to check out more in depth later. Sometimes those decks come and go off my list, and sometimes they stay for a while. Yeah. So more to come about opportunities to work with me, like we've done in the past with tarot studies, picking a tarot or oracle deck and diving in. So looking forward to that, finally being able to do that. Here's the dealio. So so my budget was $250 US. I end up spending $295.38 this year, and I don't plan to buy any more decks for the remainder of 2024. It's December, almost mid-December. I should be fine, but I did order some decks. They will be a part of the haul video, so stay tuned for the haul video. But I am $45.38 over budget. I could have not made those last purchases, but I really wanted those decks, and I did the deck interview where I questioned my Ride or Die deck if it was a great idea to add to my collection, these particular decks that I've purchased, and I got a good resounding yes. I got a clear answer on some ways I can use the deck when I get it, and so I use my existing decks for deck interviews to quiz, like, is it a good idea to add a particular new deck to the collection? So, did that. So I spent $295.38 in 2024 towards Oracle and Tarot decks. If you've been keeping track of how much you've been spending on decks, how do you feel about it? Do you feel good about the amount you spent? Did you keep track at all? Why or why not? If you do keep track, why? What surprised you? What are you hoping for in 2025 as it relates to more intentional and mindful collecting and utilizing your decks more? What would you like to see? What decks would you like to do a deep dive study? I'm curious to hear from you all on that. So that is something I really wanted to dive in with you all today for this month in review. I thought it would be important because I don't know when I plan to really talk about these findings again. It just makes sense to talk about it in this video here. Now, before we move on, I just want to make sure I cover one other thing. I do want to put up the question, what was your favorite deck or decks that you got in 2024? It could be, one or two or multiple decks. Ideally, it would be one or two because we want to get to your favorite. And when I switch camera angles, I will share with you what those decks were. The Oracle deck that really surprised me, and it's become just something I'm so enamored with. And the Tarot deck that really surprised me. So in the comment section, be sure to share what was your favorite deck that you got in 2024. 1 to 3. How about that? 1 to 3. And yeah, that's it. I think now what we'll do, I think I've covered everything I want to talk about here. Yeah, so let's switch camera angles so I can show you the decks that I was smitten by using and why I was smitten in using those decks in November. And also we'll share with you my favorite Oracle and Tarot deck that I purchased this year. And don't forget to leave comments for me. Okay, for real this time, let's switch camera angles. All right, so we're gonna look at Oracle decks first. This deck is one I created, and it's in this cute little bag. And it is the Conception and Fertility Oracle. Now, I've actually used this deck personally for myself, not for me trying to conceive, but just as an oracle, and it works really well, surprisingly. I did a couple of conception readings, and the approach that I do is I'm looking at the spiritual aspects, the metaphysical aspects of a woman preparing for motherhood. Okay, and that's the approach I do with my readings. There are, of course, those who would use this deck to help predict pregnancy and conception and whatnot, wherever you fall in terms of what you're comfortable doing with these types of readings. But for me, I take it as an approach of, how to prepare, signs to look for, and so what was really special this past month that lifted my spirits is one of my clients that I did a reading for, a conception reading, came back and gave me some exciting news that she's expecting. And, she just really was appreciative of the reading that I did for her. And it just lifted my spirits. It says motivation, time to get serious, childbirth classes. I thought about when I was creating the keywords and selecting the images, my own journey. I'm a mom of lots of kids, believe it or not. So I've been there. I've also dealt with bouts of temporary infertility and challenges of carrying the baby to term and pregnancy loss I've experienced. So I just felt called to do these types of readings. Maybe it's him. Go with the flow. July is of importance. Juggling life. Self-care is needed. Cycles. Family planning. Weeks. So we have different elements of timing, baby shower, healing the past for the future, daddy's baby girl, one child, fertility specialist needed. And we'll stop at this one. Miracles. So I have a full flip through, but I just was so touched. And so I used this deck a couple of times for client readings in November. And then that sweet update from a dear client brightened my spirits. And so, yeah, I made this deck and it has come in handy. It's been very handy for me. I love working with it and I made it. And I encourage you all to make your own decks because it really does heighten your reading experience. It takes it to a new level because the cards are born of your imagination, of your intuition, of your experience. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. So this next one, I just published, I think it was a deck revealer unboxing on my channel. It's old. You can tell by the thumbnail that I have on the video. I published it a few days ago. And it's a flip through of this deck. But that video is like from 2020. And it's 2024. Almost 2025. So it's been a while. I don't look the same. I'm not in the same space. But I wanted to throw that video up there because I knew I was going to talk about it in this video. And that's the Oracle Tarot cards by Renee Keith. And what's cool about it is that there are no keywords, and you know, use it intuitively. And she has different mixed mediums, you know, digital photography, image transfers, paintings, ink and digital editing, she says. It's out of print. You know, maybe one day you might see it or look up, you know, with a third-party seller, or you might see it on Make Playing Cards, hopefully one day. There's the card backs. But I had to share it because I've been using it as I work with my members. I've been doing content surrounding, you know, how I approach intuitive readings, you know, and we've been working with decks with no keywords, where you really, you know, lean into the artwork, or you tap further into your intuition. And this deck is so cool. I've been loving it. Because I was working with this deck in mentoring and teaching others through my Poised to Leap membership on Ko-fi, it inspired me to use it for client readings and readings for myself. And they've been fantastic. The cards have been fantastic in the readings. Look at that. Even the shades of like this blue spoke to me, you know, not just the statue or the angel, you know, but yeah. So I know it's out of print, but you know what? I'm going to show you what I was loving on and why. You know, it doesn't matter if it's out of print. Maybe one day it'll be in print. Let's see. So yeah, if you want to see the full flip through, check out that video I just published on the channel. It is an old video, but yeah, you'll start to see other old videos. I've got a lot of videos, friends, and I don't want to just let them sit unpublished, so you may as well see them. So you'll see that sprinkled in old videos from time to time. You'll know they're old because of the thumbnails. All right, let's move on to the next deck. This next deck, I don't have a flip through yet on the channel. One day I will. One day I will. I do plan to do a deck in focus with it, but is The River, Selling the Streams of Consciousness by Nick Bantock. And this is a 48 card deck and guidebook. It is produced by Llewellyn. It's got this lovely box, but more importantly, it is nothing like I have in my collection. And that could probably be because we're talking like an artist who created this deck. So sometimes I think when you don't have maybe a cartomancer who's at the helm of creating a deck, it gives a different energy for that deck, if that makes any sense. Whereas a cartomancer, they're thinking about keywords, they're thinking about certain symbolism. There's, you know, universal symbolism that speaks to us as cartomancers. However, with an artist, they may approach it differently. And I like that. I like to sometimes stretch my skills and see it from an artist standpoint. So remember I was saying earlier, I've been, you know, leading a video series for my membership about intuitive reading, no keywords. And so this was another deck I was gravitating towards. So I'm going to share with you some of my favorite images. There is a guidebook, so it's a glorious, let me show you, I'm getting all ahead of myself. Glorious guidebook. You know how Llewellyn does the guidebooks. But you're not going to get a lot, but you know, it'll get you going if you need a little prompt or push in the direction of where to go. If you really can't find your way through the artwork or through what the images are evoking. Let me share with you my favorites. Just go through my favorites. And there's some that really stand out. I should have had them ready. But, well, that'd be like too much like right. This is one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites. It's really gorgeous. Let's see if there's anything else I want to share from this deck. And then we have this one. This is the cover, but so cool. Look at that. Yeah, it's nothing like I have in my collection, but it really is something that's good for me for just going deep and maybe not necessarily asking a question, but just asking for guidance or guidance in a particular area. And journaling, using it as a journal prompt, just to the artwork itself, and then I go and write it out. So a lot of introspective work. I don't necessarily work with the clients, but I suppose you could. I just don't. It's a deck I use for myself. My readings for me. And sometimes you have to really sit and look through and just scan the images over and over. So this is why it's not one that I would be using with client readings, because I want to take my time with it. I want to leave it on my reading table and come back to it and remember my question or remember the area of focus, or, you know, just seeing what else is coming up to me as I look at it again. What other symbol stands out today? Okay. So yeah, that is The River. And this is Following the River's Course is the guidebook. So let me know if you have this deck and what your thoughts are on it and how do you work with it. So let's move on to tarot. And this is just the Borderless Smith-Waite Tarot from US Games. I've had it, I don't know, forever. Maybe since 2017, 2018. I can't remember. But sometimes I just want to go back to the basics. I love that shade of the green on the back. And yeah, it never lets me down. It always reads clearly. It's what people know as querents or clients as tarot. And sometimes I just want to, you know, go back to my home study deck, if you will. And yeah, I feel the need to share with you on that because, you know, it's not always about the shiny and new deck. Sometimes it's about what feels comfortable, what feels good, what works for you, reading over reading, back to back. I do a lot of readings per week. So this deck has withstood the test of shuffling, riffle shuffling, overhand shuffling, constant back-to-back readings. It's still in great shape, you know, so yeah. This is my US Games deck. To me, it's still in good shape. It's not even bowed or bent, you know? So, yep, let's move on to my next one. Next one shouldn't be a surprise. It is the Slow Tarot. I talk about this one a lot on the channel. It is one of my top favorite decks of all time. And I used it a lot in client readings as well. If I wasn't, these decks that I used in November that I'm talking to you now about, like the board, like this one And now this one. I just used back to back nonstop. If I wasn't using this one, I was using the other one. There's the Three of Swords. Judgment. And it is back in print from what I seen on the website the other night. I was looking around, poking around, and yeah, it is back in print for a limited time, I'm sure. Here's the Lovers. Knight of Cups. There's 2 different world cards in this deck. Year after year, I pull this one out. When I get tired of working with my Light Seers Tarot or my Super Lunaris Tarot, this is the other one I sit with and work with, usually about autumn into winter, and then I retire it until the next time. But oh, do we have a good time when we're together, year after year. Now, this is a card that has nudity, and some people do not like this devil depiction, but I do. This is the Temptation card, which is traditionally the devil. Okay, I'm glad it popped up. Here's Temperance. So I love this deck, and so I would be lying if I said I didn't use it. You know, like if I wanted to like throw in some other deck that I hardly touched or used, that would be disingenuous, right? So I have to be genuine with you. This is the deck I was loving and couldn't put down. And while you can get yourself a copy if you are in the market for a new deck that, you know, people love. The people that I've been connecting with who have this deck, they love it like I do. So there's that. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so this next one you have heard me talk also a lot about recently. And this is one of those decks that I mentioned earlier about what was one of my favorite decks that I got in 2024. And so I'll share with you this deck, the Tarot deck, and then I'm going to share with you one of my favorite Oracle decks that I got this year. So let's talk about this one. It is the Curious Travels Tarot deck. I do have a deck flip through of this deck. Any flip throughs or unboxings I have, I'll put a link in the description. If there is no link, I'll say that as well. But you can check out the full flip through of this deck. I love this deck. I cannot say enough about it. I'm super glad I went with the indie version versus the mass market. I just figure I can get the mass market if I need to. But so far I've been really, really enjoying working with the Curious Travels Tarot. I really have. I love the cardstock. Oh my goodness. I love the size. It fits so well. I love the artwork. I have really been enjoying working with it for readings for myself when I'm leading reading labs for the membership, or we're participating in doing joint spreads together. I use this deck. I use it for readings for myself, client readings, all the things. I have been really falling in love with it, and I'm glad I went with my gut and got the indie version. I just am. Like, I was waffling back and forth, like, should I get this one or should I just get the mass market? And I'm glad I listened to my intuition to go with this one. I wasn't sure if the size was going to be a smidge bigger than what we get in this size, and I didn't like that. And some of the colors I preferred in this edition, this indie version versus the mass market. But I think you are still winning with the mass market, and there may be a time where I get to a point where I just want to use a mass market and retire this one because I love it so much. Because I do that kind of thing. Here's the Queen of Swords. So this was one of my favorite tarot decks I got this year. And I got a couple more on the way. Those two that are coming are going to be in my haul video. So if you want to see all the decks that I got in 2024, like all the tarot decks, all the oracle decks, watch those videos. But this so far, and I've got quite a few decks this year, this so far is my favorite. right out the gate, I was able to use it, like for a client reading, then for a reading for myself. Like I just was like, I just want to use it. So yeah. So buttery. And I don't normally like this kind of cardstock, but for some reason it just works really well. It shuffles so good. I know it's probably, you know, some people don't like that indie rose petally buttery finish, but for some reason it works. It gets me jumpers. There you go. Two of Pentacles. All right, I'm going to now share with you my Oracle deck that really surprised me. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, so the Oracle deck that I got that surprised me is the latest deck I got, or the latest Oracle deck I got, is the Tea Leaf Fortune cards. This is a US Games deck. It really, really surprised me. I was not expecting to like it so much. I've heard about it for years, but I just wasn't moved to get it. Look, it's been around since 2011, it looks like here, and then reprinted again in 2016. So it's been around a long time. It's like 200 cards, and right out the box, it was again one of those match made in heaven kind of situations. And I don't normally like round decks, I'll be frank. I only have like one, maybe two other round decks, and I don't really use them. And I think it's because they're round. But this one, I don't mind. I won't be doing a flip through of this on the channel, I don't think, anytime soon, because there's so many deck flip throughs of this deck. I don't think that I really need to go through all 200 cards. I don't know. But I'll show you a few here. It says chair filled. Someone new is entering your life. Dog, far away. A distant friend is thinking of you. Bird flying. News is on the way. Firecracker, excitement. So now I'll show you some of the other cards that come with it. Let me see if I can find them. There they are. Here's months of the year. September. And I just mix them all up. I suppose you don't have to mix them up. You can shuffle each section separately, but I just mix them all up. Here we have Astral House. Here's career. Astral House, happiness. So you could use the astral houses and then pull, you know, cards, supporting cards under those houses, I suppose. And the book, I'll show you in a moment, goes into the different ways you can work with this deck. And it has the meanings, although I think the cards are pretty self-explanatory. You don't really need the guidebook for all that. But what's cool about this is it talks about tea leaf readings. It even came with a little... It says you can shuffle your cards in this. I thought that was funny, but anywho. That's nice that US Games included that. But how to read tea leaf. Like what? That's cool. And the meanings of the cards and different spreads and all the ways you can work with this deck. I thought that was cool. So very much a pleasant surprise. Been using this deck all the time and loving it, the results I'm getting with it. So let me know if you know about this deck. You know, do you use it? Have you used it in a while if you own it? And how do you feel about round decks? Because I'm curious to know. Curious to know. There you have it, folks. That was my month in review. My monthly faves and all the things. I want to hear from you on how did your November go and what were some of your favorite things that you got or that you used this past month. You could talk about crystals. You could talk about other metaphysical tools, your favorite decks, any of the decks I talked about. Share what you think and, you know, what you know. We all want to hear from you. And do me a favor on your way out, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being here and all of your support. Sending y'all love. Bye for now.